So if you do, actually, I should say this. If you don't have a My2N site already, you're going to have a screen that's like this, and you're going to sign up right down here on the bottom. Once you log in, you're going to automatically be on a page that looks like this. So it's the company page that you have, and it would show. This would be empty, right? So, but you would have you would name your company that's on here. In my case, it's Access Communications, and then you're seeing my multiple locations that are here. In this case, it's our offices in the Midwest, like the Chicago office, the Minneapolis office that we have, and this could very well be your end customers, or if you're an end customer, this could be your multiple locations, and then you can flip between them. You have tabs on the side where you can go to your different sites individually if you want to, and you can see the status of them. You can go to you can add different company admins on here, so who's going to have access to this site and manage these multiple sites. They'll have access to all the different site locations if they're a company admin, and you can go and create that information. We do have some SDK settings available if anybody does some custom stuff, so just be aware of that, but we're going to skip that for today. We're going to go into one of the sites right now, and just so you can see what this looks like. So we're going to click into the Chicago site, so we just click into it. Well, actually, let me back up. Let me show you what it looks like when you create a new site. So we'll just do a test one, then we're going to go to the Chicago one. So here I can hit new site. You're going to name it whatever it's going to be. So let's just say it's 100 Rainbow Road in Barrington, Illinois. Let's just say that that's a property that's out there. We're going to hit create site, and then here it's going to have us pick our site type, and then here it's very important that you pick the correct site type because depending on what you choose is going to be the license type that it requires, and you cannot change the site type later. Okay, so if you click on the apartment build style, hit next, it's gonna give you a notice before you actually set the site type, and it shows you that it uses the per apartment. That's the license that it's talking about, and it's limited to the 4 phones per apartment. So it just gives you a reminder on that. Now, if I go back and I do the office, the other one that's on here, and I hit next, it's going to say this uses the per device, okay, and it's per individual phone, so it's the per device model that we have. But in this case, let's just say it's a property. So we're going to do like an apartment property. So we're going to do apartment complex. Yes, we're okay with this. We're going to hit set type, site type, close it, and then now I can start making changes, right? I can go in here and I can add my device. So here we've got nothing in here. We have no users that are in here. I can go and I can hit add device, and I have to do a My2N device and add it in through here. I don't have one to add at the moment, so we're kind of just going to skip this portion of it, but you would add that serial number or security code in here, or if you want to do that QR method, then you can actually do it here. Oh, actually, it does work with my screen on here. So actually, let me see if I can pull this out here real quick, just so you can see what information it pops up. So I have an IP1 that's right here, and here's my certificate of ownership. We're going to add that 2N device. I'm going to do the QR code, and then I'm going to display this right visitor in front. So here you can go. You can see how easy that is to add that. It automatically pulls in that serial number and security code, and then I can just name it something. So we're just going to call it main door east side, but you could call it whatever you want, and then you can just hit next. I'm not going to add it because I have to go through an unpairing process if I do that, but you can see here it automatically recognized it's a 2N IP1 by that graphic that's on there, and then I can go ahead and add it. Now, once I hit next, it's going to automatically add it as a device in My2N, and it's going to do all of the SIP registration for me. So you can see that's only a couple of seconds that took me to do. So if you multiply that by however many devices that you have on a site in total, you can gauge that off like a total time of install. So I'm going to flip back to the Chicago site because I've got more information in here for you to see. When you do have all these different devices in here, when you would add it from the same screen, it's going to get added to your list on here like this. So here you can see we've got a variety of different devices. We have some app users and their statuses. All these ones that you see that say needs configuration, it just means that app user hasn't actually logged in to their My2N app. We have our intercoms on here. We've got answering stations, readers, all that can be managed through here. So you'll see in this case, like this 2N clip is local, so it's just doing a peer-to-peer call, but 2N set up those settings for it. I can click into it right here. I can manage the firmware if I need to, but in this case, it's up to date. I can manage my call settings up here, and I can, have, program where it calls back to. So if I want to have it call back to the IP style, all I have to do is this and enable the cloud calling back to that device and then save it. And then now that answering station can call back to something. So I can configure all these settings through here. But let's go back to an intercom where you have a directory. So something like an IP verso with a touch directory. We've got one on here on our Security Operations Center, so that's what SOC is. So here you're seeing firmware is out of date. If I hit update here, it'll give me it'll let me know what is going to be updated in the new version, and I can just push that update. But I'm going to leave it for right now just so we can continue with the demo. I can rename that device here. I can see its IP address right here. If I click into call settings, this is what your directory is essentially going to be programmed through. So you can see we've got our main button on here, which calls to these different things. I've got the callers on the directory. So if I've got Ray Sherry, let's just say we're going to change it to apartment 101. Let's just say for sake of this, Ray moved into it, and we also have him having a 2N answering station in there. We can put both of those devices in there, and it will call both of them. The other option is that we can have it call the whole apartment. So down here, you see we've got folders with different apartments that are on here. We use it for our office. That's why you see like our RSM and engineers and whatever. But if I do, let's just say it's going to be inside sales. I'm going to have it call this. It's going to call everybody in that folder. So if it's an apartment, it's going to call all 4 of those app users simultaneously. All right. So you have the ability to do that, or you can do it just per individual. So you can customize all of that. And then the information that you put in this text box here, that's what's going to display on the screen. So me switching this to apartment 101 is how that's going to display, or if I change it back to Ray Sherry, it'll display his name on the screen. So, depending on what you see, typically we see apartment numbers in residential or initials. We don't typically see people's full names spelled out. But if it's on a business and, you're here to see, Ted Bunyer, we can call Ted from the screen and, we can go that avenue with it. But it could be package delivery. It could be the receptionist, back office, however you want to have that naming convention. You type it in here, and that's what's going to be reflective on the actual screen. I was talking earlier about how you can program different lock functionality from the app. Here is where you do that under switch codes. So here I've got a DTMF code that unlocks the intercom, and that's just the lock icon to open it. But maybe I program something else in the intercom that's associated to a different DTMF code, and maybe it does something else. This is where you actually start that communication path, and you do these custom functionalities. We also support 90 days of logging through My2N, so this is where you can enable or disable that at the device level. And then if we go back and go to the access logs here, that's where that data is going to be stored from an access control log perspective. So you see that user, what credentials they're using to come in, and so forth. But it's fairly straightforward for My2N. It's just 90 days of basic logs that we have. Now, let's back up. Let's show you how quick it is to configure the access control for our users. We can just go ahead and go to access settings, and then this is where we're going to create our zones. My2N calls them access groups, but here we can go and create an access group, and I'm going to delete this test one because I'm going to have to delete that and make a new one that is test. We're going to go and do a test group, and we'll just say it's for all employees. Create group, and you'll notice it's grayed out because there's no devices that are in it. So this is really just on the initial side of things. The initial configuration of My2N, this is something that you're doing for zone access. So I'll go in, there's no people, no devices, nothing in it. So I'll go to the devices tab on here, and then assuming we've already added our My2N, our 2N devices to this, meaning answering stations, answering stations, intercoms, and readers, I can go here and I can add them. So we'll do an IP style, add to group, just for instance, and maybe I'll add another one. We'll do a verso. So here you've got 2 devices that are in this group. Now, whoever I add to this group, their credentials are just going to get provisioned to these groups. But in this case, it'll also show you the multiple groups that a device resides in. So like maybe a certain group or users have different time profiles associated to them. You can configure that here. We're going to tab over to our users right now. We're going to talk about some of this here in a second, but I want to just show you how we tie them into that zone. So we'll go to Brianna Alvarez in here. So she's right here at the top. So I can click into here. You see her contact information, everything that was used to set her up. But I can also go to this access tab on here where it manages her credentials, and then user settings. So she's already got access to a couple of zones, but I can go here and add that test group that we just made. And now she has access to that. Hit save, and then her current credentials, which would be her PIN code and her Bluetooth credential right here, now work on those devices. And My2N has just provisioned those for you. So it's very quick when you're actually setting that up. But if we go back to, let's go back to somebody who doesn't have the Bluetooth credentials. So we'll go to Tim English. I'm going to delete his access because he hasn't set his up yet. So I'm going to resend his invitation so he can log into My2N, so he'll get that. Now, adding into well, let's back up, and then I'll go back in. If you want to add a user, you have 2 options. You can go up to the top right, and you can create user, and then it's just email and first and last name. That's all we need to add that user in here, because My2N sends out like the Bluetooth over email and the My2N app over email and that type of stuff. Visitor access, My2N sends out over email when we're doing that type of stuff. So that's really all we need is email and name. If it's a residential opportunity, then you can assign this person to an apartment so that we can log them into that way and keep track of where they reside. You can use that. If it's not, then you can just skip over that step, but you can do it one by one. Or if you go to import users, we also support XLS and CSV, spreadsheet imports. So here we have a template that's available to download, and that keeps track of the users, their contact information, which would be name, email, apartment number, the floor number that they're on. And the floor number ties in when you're doing the elevator access control via KONE. All of that goes via API, but we can do all of that through the integration here. Now, we're going to get back into this. Who was I working on? It was Tim English. So we're going to go into him here. So on the right, you can there's shortcuts on here where you can scan, you can set their credentials. But I like to go into the access tab on here because if they're not set up with a zone or you want to add them to one, here's where you just add them to those doors. So we're just going to say all doors for Tim. And also he already has to the Security Operations Center. We're going to hit set group. So whatever we issue him out is going to be issued. So I deleted his PIN here just so you can see what it looks like when you get these notifications. So throughout the process, it'll give you information that you see like, all right, user doesn't have access until you give him a credential. Like, yes, you've set him to have access to the zone, but he doesn't have a credential, so therefore he cannot gain access, right? So if we want to do a PIN code, all we have to do is press this, and now you have it. It's a random 5-digit PIN. If I keep generating it, it's random 5 digits. They're always going to be different, and it's just going to save and send it over email, okay? So we're going to leave that there. If I want to do RFID, I'm going to hit this, and we have USB enrollment readers that you can just scan this from your computer while you're doing the enrollment, and it'll push that card information here, or if you know it, you can put that information in here and then hit assign fob, and then their card information will be right here. If you want to remove any of this stuff at any time, you saw me delete the PIN code. Deleting a card is very simple. All you have to do is that, or you could just delete the user in general. But what I think is very interesting is this category over here, which is new. This is the Bluetooth access. All you have to do is enable My2N app access, and you get this notification that this user is offline. So Tim just has to log into his My2N app for this. Hit enable. It's going to send him an email with information to log into the My2N app. And then once he logs into his app, his Bluetooth card is already there, and he can start using his phone on all of the devices that are in these zones. So very fast. There's not a whole lot there's really nothing else beyond that that you have to do other than give the requested users their Bluetooth app and just enable it right here. So you'll see that in an icon when you go back to the users who has the phone app access. So a few people have, maybe somebody doesn't want it, so you just leave it disabled. If I go over to Ward and says he wants the Bluetooth app access now, I can just go right here or into that app access tab, and I can just hit enable, and then it sends to his phone and his Bluetooth is paired. You're done. You don't have to do anything with it, and it's just part of My2N. Now, that is honestly that is the bulk of the My2N stuff that's on here. Now, the other thing I didn't get to just now here is in the site users tab, we have the option here for visitors. So this is also new. I can click into this and I can send. So right now it says PIN codes. I mentioned we support QR codes. So the email that you send with us right now will have PIN and QR code, but My2N is getting updated soon to choose between do I want a QR or a PIN, but right now it actually will send out PIN and QR code. So just be aware of that. You can enable that in the site settings, but you can just go in and put whoever that information is. And then if it's just going to be Ted, let's just say it's me that's coming in, you'll do the PIN code. You need to know the email address. So let's just say it's tedmuniraccess.com. You put the address that they're going to. So let's just say it's 8700, where our office is, 8700 West Bryn Mawr Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. That address will come in the email subject with instructions of how to use it at the intercom or the reader. So it'll explain how to use the PIN codes on the touch display or on the device. So it gives those instructions for you, so you don't have to draft up an email template or anything like that. My2N already has it. And then you can do, of course, time validation. So here you can say, all right, it's going to be, let's just say it's from today to, I don't know, Friday. And then you can do the specific time if you want to, and then I can save and send. When that email comes out, you get that through. It's just going to come into your inbox, and then that user can use either the QR code or the PIN code at the door when they come in. So that's kind of a glance of all of this. Now, I mentioned earlier the elevator access. So down in site settings, this is where you're going to make a lot of changes. And actually, here is where you, under access tabs, so you can choose the digit length of those PIN codes. So mine is set to 5. It's going to be 5 by default. But you could do up to 5. You can do 5 to 15 digits if you want to, and you just designate that here. And then you can check mark this QR code. So actually, you can see here here's my email for the My2N. Here's my access credential. It says here's your access for location 8700 West Bryn Mawr using the access code above. I just got to display the images. I don't know, it's a little wonky right now, but here you can see here's the attachment that comes through on your phone. It comes through in the email. So, but here it's also an attachment, so you can see it's PIN and QR code. But that's what this graphic would be right here when you're viewing it on your phone. I don't know why it's here. Download pictures that come through, but here you go. So you see that come through, and then it gives you the instruction code on the keypad. So it gives you that information here, or contacting the person who issued it with you if you have any issue. So that's something that we just do for everybody. Now, you can just go in here if you want to do the QR codes. All you have to do is check mark that or uncheck mark it. So I have mine checked because I like the QR codes. That's on there. If you're doing the elevator integration, this is, again, specifically to KONE. If you need more information on this, you're going to have to send me a message or your local 2N rep, because 2N has to be involved with this, as well as the KONE team, because we do have to get the API for My2N to communicate and connect with the KONE installation that's on site. But once we do enable that, you get all of your floor settings that are right here, and then that ties in with the users. But here, we have some introductory information on it until you come up with a need for it. So if you do have any needs with this immediately, just feel free to send me an email on it, and we can talk about it. Or I can send you the information to your local 2N rep. And lastly, the one thing I did not show on here, and then we'll get to your questions, is remote device management. So if I were to click into any of these devices, down here scrolling to the bottom, you have your different features. So here's your My2N app settings, or sorry, your mobile video settings, so the cloud calling stuff that you get. So you can do reject incoming calls if you want to. So you don't want app users to call back to the intercom. You can do that if you want. So you can reject those incoming calls. You can enable the face zooming from the ARTPEC-based Axis chipset, 2N intercoms. You can enable that in the apps and over the cloud. I like it, but some people want to disable it. If you can disable it right there. Adaptive video quality. I always suggest having this enabled because if you're in an area where you have really bad service, it'll just give you adaptive video quality depending on the bandwidth needs that you have wherever you are. And then if you're doing external camera in the My2N app, if you've paired a video like a surveillance camera externally with the intercom, then you can pair that and you can flip between that in the app, and it gives you that soft button option that's in there, and then you can just save those changes right there. Residential access allows access control that we're setting up through here to be provisioned to that device. You can turn it off also if you don't want it to provision to that device, though that kind of defeats the cloud access control portion of what we're talking about. But if you don't want it to provision for any reason, you can deactivate it right here. So you always have control over this. And then remote configuration services is the ability for you to connect to a device from off network and get into the web interface. So when you see this come through here, I'm going to be, you're going to see the web interface come up here, and then I can just log into it with my device admin credentials, and then I can get in that way. It's a little slow to load right now. Maybe it's my internet, but that takes you to a separate page, and then you'll get the login for that. Other than that, that is most of what 2N does. There's not a lot of it's not super in depth. Like it's not an enterprise access control system, so that's why you don't see certain features that are in here. But you can do a lot of stuff by logging into the device level that are on here, and you can make more specific feature functionalities at the device level, and then you can provision the rest of these settings through My2N.